Good to see you all tonight. Mike, Matthew, glad to have you guys. Let's start that again. Welcome to tonight's show. Welcome to ShredMentor Live. I'm your host, Jason Aaron Wood, and we are going to be talking about something I think will, well, by the end of the show, it's going to make music theory a lot more manageable for you. It should simplify it. But at first, I'm aware that probably not. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Okay, by looking at the name of tonight's show, scales are arpeggios, that might make no sense to you. And that is okay, because most people don't think of it that way. Most people think of, in fact, music theory as a whole as this sort of gargantuan topic full of just way too many individual little bits and pieces to memorize. And then you're like, okay, now what do I do with it? So I'm going to show you how this is the case by starting with the end result, which is what I was just warming up with today. All right, so I felt like going on early because I just couldn't wait to play the guitar, and I kind of hope that what I'm going to show you tonight kind of at least does that a little bit for you too. Okay, so you might notice what I was doing there. I was using guitar practice tools. Okay, we are dealing with this tonight, and again, now saying that scales are arpeggios. Technically, no, not really. But I will say that, okay, here's the thing. Okay, so every scale has an internal relationship, a specific, multiple internal relationships, okay? And I'm not really talking so much about minor pentatonic, but we'll get to that one too. But every diatonic scale in particular, most of all of our harmony, the concepts of major and minor are based on diatonic scales. Those are di meaning two, but actually it doesn't mean they're 2-note scales. They are 7-note scales, and every note is a second away from its next. So A to B is a major second. B to C is a minor second. So the scale moves in seconds, okay? All the tones are a second away from the neighbor, okay? Which is not the case in the minor pentatonic scale. Penta meaning 5, and there are 5 tones. The same person did not name these two types of scales, but they used the prefix and tonic, you know, penta or di. Anyway, the point is, though, 7-note scales give us more notes and a more in-depth relationship, okay? And when you play through a scale in order, I'm just going to use E minor, I guess. It gives you a specific kind of vibe, okay? It gives you a certain color. And the rest of it, you know, if I continued playing any note out of those notes, it would sound in key now, because you already heard all of the notes in the scale. And even if I just introduce a couple, it's going to give you the general idea, okay? Hexatonic, okay, that's a good one. So hexatonic is basically something I see thrown around, and it's basically pentatonic with 1 note added in. And I guess technically that would make the blues scale hexatonic, but usually what I see is, all right, let's look at your minor pentatonic scale as a natural minor scale with notes 2 and 6 removed, okay? The reason we have 5 notes in minor pentatonic is because we had a 7-note scale and we took 2 of them out. So if you do A minor, I am on a 7 string, but I won't use that for now. But A minor pentatonic, for example, is A. Then C, where the hell did B go? We threw it out. D, E, G, where the hell did F go? We threw it out. A, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then note 6 is actually, you know, that's pentatonic. I'm getting there to hexatonic. Okay, here's the thing. We've thrown out B and F. All right, now, only in this key does that matter. B and F are 2 and 6. I purposely went to A as the minor root because, you know, alphabetical convenience. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, and so on. B equals 2 and F equals 6. Minor pentatonic is minor without the 2 or the 6. So it doesn't matter what key you're in, do that to it, and you will have the minor pentatonic version of that minor key. Okay? We will talk more about that, but essentially what hexatonic is minor pentatonic with 1 of those notes put back in. More often, it's the second. All right? And it gives you a little bit of a... To me, it's always... I use it for a more 80s vibe. All right? So when I want to, like, kind of... If I want to write melodies that sound kind of Iron Maiden-ish, you know? So, like, I'll use A minor again. Instead of... which has a very overt kind of blues kind of quality. This kind of smooths it out. All right, so basically it's just minor without the 6 now. That's hexatonic. I could have just answered it real quick, but I wanted you to get the reasoning why we have that. All right, so I want you to think of anything less than a diatonic scale, or fewer notes than a diatonic scale, as just a diatonic scale with some notes removed, because you can put those notes back in, which is what we're going to be doing tonight to illustrate how scales are arpeggios. We're going to be starting with an arpeggio and adding some scale tones back in. Okay, so just a straight up 1, 3, 5. So real quick, all right, there is something I want to talk about actually before I get too far into this. Basically, all right, many of these different scales that we deal with, okay, they have a perfect fifth, and not all of them, but for most of the odd scales that we deal with, okay, in fact, most of the modes of even just the natural minor scale, except for one of them, has a perfect fifth from each note being treated as a root note. There's only one place where it's not a perfect fifth. Otherwise, though, from there you also would additionally have either a major third or a minor third. So basic chord construction, and that goes for arpeggios too, is that you have a root note, you go 2 notes higher so that you're not playing 2 notes right next to each other. Give them a little space, to ring out. There's a minor third, there's a major third. They sound a lot more pleasant than a major second or a minor second, right? So we're not using notes that are immediately next to each other. Not that it doesn't happen, but just your basic major and minor chords are something called a triad, a 3-note chord, okay? And it happens by starting at 1 note, and that's your root note of the chord or the arpeggio, and you do every other note, and for 3 notes. So 1, 3, 5. You skip over 2, you skip over 4. You basically skip over your even notes, your even numbered notes. Okay, so if when you talk about a 7th chord, that's 1, 3, 5, 7. You talk about a 9th chord, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Notice the pattern. We're not playing any of the even numbered notes, although 9 is just 2. All right. So let's see. I will write this out quickly on the back of my child's coloring page because I didn't have it prepared, but I'm going to just make it real quick. So you basically have 7 notes per octave, okay? But then I want you to understand the naming, because that's it's going to be, to me, that's the biggest pain in the ass. I will admit openly, okay, here. But there are only 7 unique notes per octave, and 7 unique notes at all in a diatonic scale, because that's the defining feature of a diatonic scale. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write out so basically we call it an octave, oct meaning 8, because oct means 8. The 8th note is where the whole thing starts over. So I'm going to just kind of show you what the notes would be. So I know that most of you have probably browsed through some kind of a scale encyclopedia at some point in your life and been like, what the hell am I even looking at? What is this? Okay, so I want you to understand what's going on. In fact, all right, I'm going to circle the notes, and they're just numbers because it doesn't really matter what the individual notes are. You can start at any note and do this pattern, okay? But here we go, right there, okay? This, I'm going to just kind of pan across here, okay? So 1, 3, and 5. This is just our 7 notes, and when you get to 8, I wrote what the notes really are underneath them, okay? This is where we get things like a 9th, an 11th, a 13th, and such. Those are the 3 even numbers. 9, 11, and 13 are odd numbers, but when you realize that they're just 2, 4, and 6, those are the 3 notes that we jumped over when we went 1, 3, 5, 7 in the first octave. So if we just keep going through, it doesn't really go higher than 13 because that's all 7 notes. So yeah, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Now you're past 8. 8 is the octave. It's where it starts over. So now you're actually hitting those even numbered notes, but they're considered odd numbers because we're extracting them out of the next octave. Okay, so when you see something like minor, add 9. Okay, this is 1, 3, 5. Okay, and that's it. You at the core of every chord or arpeggio, you have a 1, 3, 5. Now there are exceptions like a sus2 or a sus4, where the 3 itself is replaced by a 4 or a 2. Okay, so instead of a 1-3-5, you would use a 1-2-5. That would be a sus2, or a 1-4-5, and that would be a, sorry, it's too far away, it's too washed out. Sorry, 1-2-5 would be a sus2, a 1-4-5. Not to be confused with the 1-4-5 progression, but 1-4 and 5 as a chord is called a sus4. So there are some that don't have, those are exceptions. In general, 1-3-5 is the basis of every major and minor chord. That part is, there's no exception. That's what major and minor is. You either have a major third, so I'll start from A here, major third, and followed by a minor third, because that from here to, that's the perfect fifth. So let's look at this chromatically, okay? Start from, I'm at 5, so plus 4, 4 half steps higher, and 3 half steps. All right, so from any root note, 4, then 3, that makes major. Your major third is a third of the root note, so that's why it makes it major. If we use a minor third, it's only we have 3 half steps, then 4 half steps. It's still 7 from here to here. All right, from root to fifth, it's still 7 half steps. It just kind of depends on whether the third is a minor third above the root or a major third above the root. Minor, that's 3 frets higher and 4 frets higher, or 4 half steps, that is. 3 half steps, then 4 half steps. That gives you minor. Do it the other way around. 4, then 3. The major third is turning the overall chord major, okay? Minor, major. Minor, major. It's essential that you know that for what I'm going to be telling you next. Okay? Let me know in the chat if this is all clear so far. My goal is for you to understand this and be able to use it. So please, please do ask questions if you have them. Someone else out there probably has your question. There are no dumb questions, especially in a topic like this. But my goal here tonight is to demonstrate for you that music theory is actually not as complicated as it might seem on the surface. It's usually just the way that it's conveyed. All right, but you need to see what this looks like on your guitar so that you're speaking the language as you go. So if you don't have your guitar on you, I suggest you go grab it, and I'm going to fill the time with a little bit more talking. And I don't know if our friend from last week is going to pop in and tell me my bad production and talking is ruining the show again, but let's see what happens. Hopefully you can see me and hear me better and understand me, most importantly, right? So, okay, I'm purposely using the same root note and to show you that it's the same perfect fifth. This is what every major and minor chord / arpeggio comes down to. What kind of third does it have? Does it have a minor third? Well, then it's a minor chord or arpeggio. Does it have a major third? Then it's major, either chord or arpeggio. The only difference whether it's a chord or an arpeggio, just in case those of you who don't know that, a chord is either the formula of the notes that go together, what I just showed you, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, whatever. The notes you're going to play together, you're either going to play them all at one time, which makes it a chord, or you're going to play them one note at a time, which makes it an arpeggio. And it doesn't matter whether you use sweeping or any other technique, as long as you play the notes of a chord one at a time, you are playing an arpeggio, okay? And that's why I called it. Scales are arpeggios, not scales or chords. Technically, same thing. I use the word chord, by the way, a lot of the time to not only talk about chord, like notes played all at once, but I also use it to refer to just the formula. I might say that later throughout the show. So if I start saying the word chord, I don't want you to think I'm talking about strummy stuff. I just mean the note combination. Okay, chord and arpeggio, in the way I'm going to be talking about them tonight, are practically interchangeable. Okay, I'm going to be playing them as arpeggios, just so you know, but I just want to clarify that now so that I don't confuse you as I go. But chord, in the context I'm using it, means the formula of the notes that go together based on how I'm deriving them from the scale. Okay, just want to make that clear from the outset. So I think we should stay here on the guitar practice tools area, and I think it's probably a good idea if we go here. I didn't load this ahead of time, but I think it might be good if we go into the guitar practice whiteboard. I'm just going to sort of let that load. This is the beefiest of the guitar practice tools on the site, because pretty much every piece of content is on, a lot of the content on the site is on this one page, so it takes a little while to load. Anyway, okay. So yeah, let's let that all load here, and I want you to see this as scale degrees, okay? Scale degrees are treating your notes as numbers, like what we just did. A, B, C, D, E, F, G is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Unless you're in E minor, then E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, okay? So what you're looking at here on the page, let's just zoom in a little bit so you can see it, okay? This is the major scale. This is the G major scale. So you're going to see all the notes of the G major scale with G as 1. We're counting from G in this case. G is the main note of that scale. It's the same scale as E minor, but in this particular context, it's 6. All right. So if I just go playing 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, or whatever, let's see. Let's do that. Alright, as I said, I'm going to start with an arpeggio, but now I can basically add some other notes into it, and it will become a new kind of arpeggio. Okay, so I'm going to add the 2 in there. This makes it an add 9. Remember, as I said, 9, 11, and 13 are just 2, 4, and 6. Personally, I find it a lot easier to just deal with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The naming convention for chords uses 9, 11, and 13, but as long as you understand that's 2, 4, and 6, we don't really need to deal with that. And that's why you're not going to see this note here marked as 9, or that note as 11, or that 13, because it's just 2, 4, and 6 again, and we're not going to actually play it like your G, 3rd, 5th, 9. I mean, it's a cool sound, because from here to here is a perfect 5th as well. It's an interesting sound, but we don't, once we have derived the formula from the scale, we don't actually have to play them in that order. We just need to gather together which notes go together to make this kind of sound, and then we can play those notes in whatever octave we want. Okay, so just because it's based on 1, 3, 5, and maybe this would be the 7 and that would be the 9, I don't need to play 9 up here. I could just go. Okay, it's it's a very common type of melody. In fact, in the last 15 years, I think most pop songs pretty much use that in the chorus. There's one way or another, that's the millennial whoop, I've heard it called, but I don't know how many pop songs use it, but it's probably in the hundreds, maybe the thousands. But there's a lot of stuff that uses a major add 9. You don't have to call it major, it's just an add 9 chord. But anyway, dealing with minor chords works the same way. So just by going, instead of 1, 3, 5, we can do 1, 2, 3, 5. 2 makes it an add 9. You can use something like that. Didn't say this is all going to be about soloing either. But anyway, yeah, anything you do within your scale single note style here, all you have to do is think about what are these notes and how are they related to each other. Okay? So here's the nice thing too about this. I'm just looking at my notes so I don't miss anything I specifically wanted to cover. It's going to be a little freeform tonight once again. Okay, but since you pretty much just need there to be a 1, a 3, and a 5, some type of 3, whether it be the major third or minor third, but you need a root, a perfect 5th, and either a minor third or major third. Okay. Other than that, the 2, the 4, the 6, and the 7 they can all kind of be wild cards, really. All right. So I'm just gonna. I don't think we need the scales right now. Okay. In fact, let's zoom back out because that looks terrible. I'm going to use, let's see, that's my proper zoom level for the show. Here we go. I'm going to use an A, because, well, yeah, I'll use an A for alphabetical convenience. This is to help you, so let's do A. Okay, A. All right, so I could, let's just say I take my root, 3rd, and 5th from, again, pure A minor now, because A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? If I add the 4 into that, okay, that's something we might call an add 11, or a minor add 11. Okay, again, 9, 11, 13 is just 2, 4, 6. Right? So try to memorize that throughout the course of the show. You'll know what I mean right away when I say it. But basically, if you're not going 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13, basically, if it's a ninth, I have to play 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. I need to play all of the thirds up to that. So there's a difference between an add 9 and a ninth. Okay, not talking about the interval, but the chord, a ninth chord. That's 9. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. I guess it would be a minor ninth. I get a little foggy when it comes to that kind of thing too. But I just want to teach you the recipe and how to make these sounds yourself. So it's not so important what we're going to call it down to the nitty gritty, and I'm a little unsure sometimes myself. I just know that I'm starting from mode 1. It's the ninth from that in that scale. Okay, so it's enough for me to get through 6 albums so far that I've released, and there's 3 more on the table. But anyway, and that's just my solo stuff. But yeah. Okay, so if I add the 4 in there too, it's a very, it's kind of a blues rock phrase, really, but it's also an arpeggio. It's a minor add 11, not a sharp 11. Sharp 11 would be, that's a sharp 11. So just add 11. I know the Guitar Grimoire for a long time has been the book that I turn to for for scales in general. It's my preferred scale encyclopedia. It doesn't tend to talk about just regular add 11s. It's like just jump straight to sharp 11. I think they were aiming that at the jazz guys, but there is one. And you know what? There is a site, and I'm going to turn off the drone for just a second. I'm going to take a peek, and I don't want to spend time. I'm going to look at another computer because I just want to see, chord type, let's see, there's this website, and I really can't remember what the hell it was, and it's a shame, because, let me see if I can find it. If I can find it, I'm going to tell you what it is. And if I can't find it, it's because I can't tell you what it is because I don't remember. But I found it really useful, and somebody came up with this kick-ass tool where you can basically enter notes on a fretboard, and it'll tell you what the actual chord formula is. And your hand doesn't actually need to be able to reach them on this thing. It'll just take the notes you put in. Oh man, where is it? Tell you what, those of you who are on Facebook, go to facebook.com/ShredMentor and follow the page, and as soon as I find it, I'm going to post it on that page. Because apparently I don't have it where I thought I would have had it, and I don't want to take up any more time on that. Anyway, though, what it's called, as I said, I don't really care too much about it, but I do want to know the recipe so I can make that sound again. And that's my whole philosophy as a musician in general. I want to be able to make these sounds again whenever I listen to something, when I'm walking around in a store, music might be playing. I might even hate the music, but I'm still analyzing it. I'm listening to, how do they make that sound? How do they make that sound? If it's something I hate, I want to know how they make that sound so I don't make that sound. But or sometimes I'll hear things that make it through in really big, successful songs. We're like, what were they thinking? Because, sometimes pop sucks. But sometimes it's really good. It just depends. And it's all subjective a little bit, but I can at least tell you why I think something sucks, theory-wise. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about it. Let's go back to that phrase we were at there. Let's get the A going here. All right, so we have, in fact, let's look at the whole minor pentatonic scale, okay? Let's look at everything we have. All right, a 1, a 3, a 4, or an 11, okay, a 5, and a 7. So minor 7, add 11. That's it, right? So that is the minor pentatonic scale looked at as an arpeggio, Okay, if we go, through it and look at how we might approach getting those, I think I'm going to run out of notes. I'm going to do 1, 3, 5, 7, and then the 11 will be 1, 3, 5, 7. The 9 would be the B, which I'm not going to have, but it's a D in this case. Okay, that's sort of what it would be if we looked at it as an arpeggio and where we would have gotten those notes from. Okay, so anyway, that's kind of the idea, though, is you might need to do some inversions. Okay, and that's one thing I'm going to I want to talk to you about that a little bit too. Okay, and in fact, I've explained it so well at one point that I'm not going to try to wing it right now. I'm going to play you a quick video, and I'll be right back. Okay, so really quick. An inversion is simply when you take your notes in your chord and you rearrange them in a different order. So it gives you different voicings, basically. So you can take your root, third, and fifth, or you can take the root note and tack it onto the top, and then you have your third, fifth, and root. Or you can even take that bottom third and put that up in the next octave, and you have a fifth, root, and third. You're going to have as many different inversions as you actually have notes in your chord. But that's basically inversions in a nutshell. So hopefully this makes sense. When you get things, like a seventh that have 4 notes in them, you're going to have 4 inversions: a root inversion, a first inversion, a second inversion, and a third inversion. So this kind of thing just happens naturally. It's just a byproduct of the order that we're putting the notes in. Okay, so hopefully that makes it clear. Okay, my point here is that the notes are going to be in different orders. Okay, so if I play an A, a C, and A, it doesn't have to be that A, and then the next C doesn't have to be the next higher note, and the E doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be in that order. That's just how we derive the notes from the scale that go together in this relationship. But I can have this E here, skip over the next E, and that is an A minor too. This A, this C, and this E. I'm skipping over a chord tone in between because there was an E here and an A there that I didn't play. And so any A, any E, and any C. That's an A minor too. Okay, so you're really not even limited just to the inversions that I just showed you there either. Okay, there's a lot more that you can do here. So anyway, the sky is the limit is the point. I'm going to go back on over to, let's hit the guitar practice tools again, and we're going to use some more with these drones. I'm going to use B this time because it doesn't matter. What I'm doing is the same thing. It doesn't really matter what your root note is, but I'm on a 7th string and I want to use B. I might not use the 7th string, but I want to use B anyway. I'm going to use that minor add 9, root 5th. All right, and I can really milk that 9th when I hit that. So my melodies are based on the arpeggio that I am trying to bring out the character of, okay? And the 1, 3, and 5, they're just the strong foundation to get that minor sound. The extra notes are actually what's adding all of the character, and that's why it's really important to understand how we're just starting with 1, 3, 5. It doesn't matter if you have a 7th, a 9th, an add 9, an add sharp 11, or whatever. You still have a 1, a 3, and a 5. We're still basing it on that basic 3-note chord. Or, see, I said chord, right? That same 3-note combination. 1, 3, 5 is at the core. That is the foundation that we build other more complex chords on. And so chords and melodies aren't really that different from each other. Turn a chord into an arpeggio, and now it's a melody. So what I just did there, that was a B minor add 9. do some more with that. And I don't have to just be, you know, like... that is not required for this to become an arpeggio. All right, so... One, 3, 5, 9. Just by doing that, most listeners aren't going to see, like, oh wow, what chord is that? They're going to think of that melody, like, oh, that's interesting. Some people might be like, how did they think that up? Well, the way you do that is you look at the chord and you just get creative with how you're going to approach those notes, how you're going to introduce them all together in whatever succession. What I like to kind of do sometimes too is linger a little bit on the new weird note, the non-chord tone, which is usually almost the opposite of what I tell people a lot of the time when I'm teaching theory in general, because essentially what we're kind of trying to do is play the chord tones when the chord starts. All right, so if I come into here and go into my chord progressions section, which I will just assume is going to load for me, because my own connection to my own site sometimes is worse than regular users. At least it's not. It might do a 503 error, but I'm going to hope it doesn't. Anyway, yay, it works. Good. So I'm going to do a B backing track here. And so let's try this one here. I have a feeling my guitar is not loud enough for this, and let me know if you need me to do that. I think that backing track happens to be a little bit too loud, unfortunately, but a little bit longer just to get my point across. Hopefully the guitar is loud enough to hear against that backing track, but the concept that I usually kind of convey how you use theory is you play melodies from your scale, but you make it a point to land on the notes of the chord as the chord is starting, and you then focus on the 1, 3, and 5 of that chord, and then when the chord changes, you try most of the time to land on one of the 1, 3, and 5 of the new chord just as it's hitting. If you don't manage to do it, land on that note on beat 2 of that chord, and it can, you know, just to give you an example here, I'll do it one more time here, and I'll purposely hit the 1 on each second beat instead of the first beat of the chord. You can totally do it. You know, I just purposely played the note right above it and then resolved back to the actual root of the chord. And you can do that with thirds. You know, play the 4th and then the 3rd. Play the 6th and then the 5th. You know, you can do the same concept with, you know, any chord pretty much. This is a very simple chord progression, just two different chords. But anyway, just wanted to kind of give you that idea. Metal Rules, thank you very much, appreciate it. Anyway, that's generally what we're trying to do, is we're trying to actually play the chord tones 1, 3, and 5, and that resolves the melody. It can be a little bit too predictable though. Okay, 1, 3, and 5 are the safe notes, so they're not particularly adventurous either. They don't have to be super adventurous. It's a matter of taste at that point, but this is how you get there. Okay, 1, 3, and 5 are the foundation. They are part of the chord. They're the notes that are already in the chord. So when we go to play the notes of our scale, we want to favor the notes that are in the chord playing right now. And then when the chord changes, we want to favor the notes that are in that chord that's playing right now. So it's never as simple as just play the notes from the scale and you'll be in key. But that's not quite enough, because you have to focus on, you're basically playing within the backing track, not, or whatever the backing music is, you're playing within it, not over it, okay? Playing over it sort of implies, I know it's the wording we use, but it's sadly, it's all too fitting, because a lot of the time people are just playing over top of it, like almost yelling over it, like not paying attention to the changes, or not knowing what to be doing within those changes. But that's essentially the concept. When you want to make melodies that sound like they're like perfect and channeled from beyond, that's sort of what you try to do, is you try to play the note that anticipate the changes. All right. So anyway, hopefully that makes sense. That's sort of what I would generally recommend you do. If you're not good at doing that yet, that's a good place to start. Okay. Use the backing tracks here. If you don't have what I'm using here tonight, I'm pulling out 2 of the 3 types of backing tracks. Not doing too much with the beats tonight, but I might. We have some time, you know. And a cool tip, by the way, for using guitar practice tools, if I play one of these tracks and then I play another one, it's going to turn off the first one. So you can't really play the drones and the beats at the same time on the same page. But a nifty little hack is you open them in 2 different tabs and then just play them at the same time. And they'll go on for about 10 minutes together, roughly. I'm sure one will end slightly before the other. But anyway, that's a neat little way that you can practice playing over one chord from one particular key if you need some practice developing some vocabulary, practice resolving your melodies to that particular chord. All right, so let me give you an example of where that's going to be very important too. All right, so I'll show you the hack right now. Practice beats is what I'm going to be using here, and I'll just use just a straight rock beat here. Straight rock beat number 1. And I'm going to use the drone. Okay, now I'm going to still be in B minor. Okay, this is not something most people, when you're if you were playing in B minor, you'd probably start at B and you'd focus on the chord B minor and all that stuff. But let's not forget there are 6 other notes in that scale. There's C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, and A. Right? So I'm going to practice not over B, but let's practice over the G, the 6th of the chord. All right, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G. With that kind of chord that we know. There. That chord, right? So I'm going to practice playing the B minor scale to G. Now, G is where the Lydian mode is. Lydian has its own particular, and actually its own particular type of chord too, all right? So I'm not going to go, right, I'm not just going to switch over to G and it's be in G minor now. I want to stay in B minor. There's my root note of the chord. B is still the root note of the scale, but that doesn't really matter too much. It matters right now that which notes to play and what are the root 3rd and 5th of G in that scale. Full step. There's my 3rd, B. B is in the chord. It's the 3rd though, not the root. Another whole step. This has the sharp 11. Sharp 4 is what Lydian. Major with the sharp 4 is Lydian, and that's what this is. Oops. All right. So this is the second time this has come up because I just had a lesson a couple hours ago, but we talked about this before. The Simpsons mode. All right. Normally it's from C, not G, but right. So I can basically use root, major 3rd, the sharp 4, and the 5. The sharp 11, basically. It's basically a major add sharp 11. And now I could maybe make an add 9. There's the 2. I'm not sure how you would call that. I guess it's sort of like a major add 9, add sharp 11. I don't know how I don't. If you know, let me know in the chat. I know I'm here to teach you, but you know what? This is where I get a little foggy. But I do know that it's 1, 3, and 5. But we're going to add in the 2 and the sharp 4. That is how I look at this. It's a cooking analogy. Okay, I've said recipe a bunch of times, so no surprise there. But there's the 3rd because I'm bending to it. Pass through the 9th. That right there, just by itself, that's a major. Add 9. 1. So it's 3, 2, or 9. 1, 5. 3, 2, 1, 5. 1, 3, and 5 is right there, which is also have a 2. And now look to the sharp 11. Right? So the melody itself is arpeggio based. Okay? How I pick what note from one moment to the next totally comes from that. That's totally what I'm doing. So I might do the same thing with the other ones. I'm going to play A again, but again, I'm going to be playing B minor, so I'm going to play A Mixolydian. Let's take a look at what Mixolydian is real quick. Okay, I just said that G Lydian, that's the other mode we were just in. Lydian is like major, but with a sharp 4. Mixolydian, which is what happens at A in this key, the 7 of any minor scale, it's like major with a flat 7. Okay, that's called dominant. All right, that's 1, 3, 5, and flat 7. So again, this is so. Okay, just to, that's sort of what I'm looking for, is the thing that makes it unique and not just, you know, there's nothing wrong with that, you know, doing. But it's not particularly inventive, and once you get sweeping, it's all too often, sadly, that's what people end up doing, right? So that's a pretty common Mixolydian kind of thing. It's not just the minor, all right, it's not just the major, or the dominant 7, because that kind of really tells you, just to listen to it, kind of where you are on the scale. It has a 1, it has a 3, major 3rd, that is, perfect 5th, and it has a flat 7, that is the whole step below the next root. But a really good way to introduce that Mixolydian sound is that note between the flat 7 and the 5. So let's look at it this way. Here's my A, and here's my 5th. Look at it, that's a power chord. Oops. Being in tune is really good for this too. Anyway. Alright, so take a look at the upper note. Okay? What I'm basically doing is something kind of like what happens on a minor scale. Above the 5th, we have the minor 7 and the major 6. Alright? 1, 3, 5, 7, and a 6. Remember, 6, 9, 11, 13 is 2, 4, 6. So this would, I guess, be a 7. It would be a dominant, just a 7. But a dominant 7 is just called a 7th, by the way. So that's the default one. Just the same way that you just say, you know, A chord is automatically major. If you say an A major, you don't have to, but you can. So an A dominant 7, you don't really have to say it. It's just an A7. But anyway, we're adding something to it. It's an A7 add 13. All right. So. Alright, so that's part of it. I added a 4 in there, so that would have been just a straight, I guess it would have just been a 13 no 9. I don't know how that would work. I guess it's basically because I'd be a 1, 3, 5, 7, 13, and then I did the 5 and then the 11. So I played 1, 3, 5, 7, 11, and 13 there. Eventually you just get to a 13. Every one of these scales is a 13 arpeggio, right? Okay, that's basically what it is. All right, so going back to what I showed you there, yeah, that's it. All 7 notes. That's 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13. That's it. That's it. Each, 1, 3, 5, 7 takes care of your root, 3rd, 5th, and 7th. And then the 9, 11, 13 takes care of the other 3 notes you skipped over. So if you just simply play a scale, I've just played a 13th. I don't know. At that point, it's the wrong naming, but I just think of it, to keep track of it, it's the Mixolydian mode. And I played a 13 from there. Anyway, because there's going to be 7 different, forms of a 13th depending on each of the different modes. So that's as far as I'm going to go with it. And I know that the Greek names of the modes are not the most intuitive. It took me 14 years to bother to memorize them all. Not that I wasn't already using them. I just thought of it as mode 1, mode 2, mode 3, mode 4, mode 5, mode 6, and mode 7. And that was good enough for me for a very long time. Didn't stop me from getting into a signed band and recording with them and releasing and the first Totus Bond and EP and all that stuff. I didn't memorize that until probably 2006, and I started playing in 1992. So I mean, I got that far. I was writing harmonies, and I understood it all to an extent, pretty well. But the naming can help a little bit. The Greek names, it's just, what it is. It's just the name for that sound, so you can refer back to it again. And so I did memorize like Phrygian and Aeolian and Ionian. Those are the 3 I knew all the way up to then, because I used Phrygian and Aeolian all the time because I like metal, so you kind of have to. And Ionian you kind of have to know because that's major. So Aeolian is the other name for minor. So getting to know your modes, at least just by the scale degree that it starts on within whatever scale you use, helps a great deal. I used a provocative title tonight because it's something that I know it seems unintuitive, but scales are arpeggios. It's not that they are, it's just that you can basically analyze any scale and give it a chord name. And of course the thing itself might need to be inverted in order to arrive at the relationship that you're looking for, the 1, 3, and 5, plus whatever else. But for the next 10 minutes, this is what we've got left for tonight's show, I'm going to suggest this handy formula, okay? Start with a triad and add one of the other 4 notes. Remember, 2, 4, 6, and 7 are not chord tones. Again, just start from the basic triad that is at the core of every one of these things, okay? So just to get you out of playing just like, scales up and down, I strongly suggest start with a 1, 3, 5 and then pick one of the other 4 notes. Just one. So only dealing with a 4-note scale fragment, okay, which consists of 3 notes that are already decided for you, okay. And this is to kind of train your ear and to understand the theory a little bit more. All right, I'm going to go back to A, but this is going to be minor, okay. I'm going to go back to just A minor once again for alphabetical simplicity here. All right, A. All right, we have a couple options though, okay. So I'm just going to use the notes that are in the A minor scale first, okay. I'm not going to use any sharps or flats yet. Okay, 1, 3, 5. All right, 1, 2, 3, 5. All right, that works. It's a very powerful thing. That's all the inversions of it. Just so if you're wondering what I'm doing here, I want to show you what the different kinds of melodies are that just come from that little note combination. Okay, 4 notes means there's 4 inversions: a root inversion, a root inversion, first inversion, second inversion, and third inversion. Not my favorite naming convention, but that's how it works. Root inversion, because you know the root note of the chord is in it, but then you have the first, second, and third after that. So 4 notes means 4 inversions, okay? Just like I had in the little video earlier, okay? Let's talk about the next note. I'm just going to go right through the additional notes here. 1, 3, 5, and 2. That was that. 1, 3, 5, and 4. Very minor pentatonic kind of sound. It's basically minor pentatonic without the 7. And then, of course, the last one. I find the tapping way gets you to hear all of them. Might not be what I use for all of them, but anyway, that's kind of it. Yeah. 1, 3, 4, 5. 3, 4, 5, 1. Let's see. Oh yeah, I missed one. 4, 5, 1, 3. Let's see. Very hard to do the stretch there, but anyway. All right, and then we have the... Yeah, so there. I know I missed something. Something's going wrong there. Okay, so next one is going to be the 6th. Okay, 1, 3, 5, and then 6. There's a minor. That's actually a minor flat 6. 6 ones you don't really have to call it an add 13 after all. By the way, I forgot. It's just called a 6 chord. So just to make it even more complex, the system doesn't really work. This 1, 3, 5, and 7, you don't have to call it an add anything because it's all in the first octave. But the 6, we call that a 6 chord, which is friggin' annoying. But anyway, that's what that is. Let's move the root note up here. All right. All right, and then we have... Now, this is fun. This is where this particular one actually is also a major 7. It's also an F major 7. All right, 1, 3, 5, 6. 3, 5, 6, 1. 5, 6, 1, 3. Oops. Ah. All right, and then we'll start at the 6. 6, 1, 3, 5. All right, that's the 4 inversions of that. Finally, we have the 7. Then I'll do the natural, the minor 7. All right, so that's basically... Sweeping's easier for that one. Then we'll do the 3, 5, 7, 1. All right, next one we'll do, let's see, 3, 5, 1. So 5. Let's see, missing some. Oh yeah, 7, 1, 3, 5. All right, so like that. I think that was it. 1, 3, 4. There, that's the one. Layla, right? that's it. That's the Layla melody, but obviously a different key. You know, that was in D minor. Actually, it's strangely tuned, but yeah, that's sort of it. I am. How are you picking? Hammer on and pulling. Yeah, I am. So alternatingly, it just depends on the interval pattern in this case. I was doing tapping and hammer-offs and pull-offs, hammer-ons and pull-offs rather. as much as possible to get it all on one string. Sometimes I was using like an extra, so like I'm using an economy pick, and then hammer on, tap. Basically hammer on until I run out of fingers, and then jump in with the other hand, essentially. In the very beginning with this one, that was sweep picking. And let's see, so, and then here I like to do, so I'm doing a little bit of an economy pick here, just one drag through there. I prefer alternate picking, actually. Down, pull off, up, down, down, up. Yeah, up, down, pull off, up, down, up. So those are the notes I'm actually picking. And then here it's just all tapping because I can reach it. I could see it. Not as clean, I don't think, but that's my fault. You know, that's my problem. But anyway, so, and then we have, all right, so that's the 4 inversions of that. Okay, so now we are almost done with that, but I do want to point out one other option here because it gives you at least 4 other options, and this is just minor. I didn't even deal with the major ones. Okay, so you can create these sort of hybrid things, and it's not so different. There are scales that already contain this. Okay, so I could use let's use the flat 2 just to illustrate it. It's basically a minor. It's sort of like an add flat 9, I guess. It's basically based on Phrygian. Okay, I could also use a sharp 4. You know, so, kind of hints at like a Hungarian minor. I could also use a major 6, 1 minor 3rd, 5. That kind of hints at like Dorian. And I could also use the major 7. So, and when you're first getting used to sweep arpeggios, that's the mistake you frequently make because it's a half step short of the note we're usually, yeah. Right, but it is technically called a minor major 7 or minor delta. Delta is short for major 7. It's not meant to be intuitive to everybody, but that is, when you see the word delta, it actually means major 7. It means it contains the major 7 interval in that chord. So anyway, yeah, there are other options. So I could do this. I'll do a little bit with major real quick, but then I'm going to have to get going here. So we have A, right? One of my favorite ones is to add a flat 6 on top of a major. It's very Lord of the Rings. It's this very like magical kind of sound. It's a great one. Okay, so anyways, you can basically follow what I would start with, following what the scale itself has in it, but then just hit those other 4 variations. You have 2 kinds of seconds. You have a minor second and a major second. You have a perfect 4th or a sharp 4th, or sharp 11, whatever. 2 locations for each thing. You have a minor 6th and a major 6th, and you have a minor 7th and a major 7th. Okay, so you really have 8 options for all minor chords and all major chords. 16 options, just triad plus one. Okay, so explore them, go through them, make that time to do that, because that is one of the most rewarding things. You're going to find recipes you like, and you'll hopefully be paying attention to what you just threw in the soup, because pay attention to the ingredients. That's how you make that sound again. That is all I've got for you tonight. I really am glad that you guys joined me tonight. I hope that you got a lot out of this. Mike, thank you very much. I appreciate that very much. And thanks once again. If you're in the chat, you've already subscribed, but if you're watching and haven't, be sure to subscribe so you can join in on the chat in future free lessons like this. If you want more than what we cover here, these are sort of one-off. They very rarely build on each other, unlike what actually happens at ShredMentor when you're my student. So if you're looking for more like this, but more specific to what your goals are, head over to ShredMentor.com, fill out the form. Let's meet for a free introductory consultation and talk about what you do want to achieve, and I'll see if that's, if I'm the guy for you. And of course, if I am, I'm going to get you there as soon as possible. If you want to use the guitar practice tools we've been using tonight, so that you can use the same tools that I use when I practice, go to guitarpracticetools.com. It's free for 30 days, and it's only $10 a month after that. So it's kind of win-win. But anyway, thank you all for joining me very much. I really appreciate it. I'm very close to 1,000 subscribers, and I know that's very small potatoes for social media numbers, but for me it's nice. And so yeah, if you're watching and haven't subscribed yet, please do. Even if you're watching on some other thing, hop over on YouTube. It's easy to find. Look for ShredMentor and give me a subscribe. And if you know other guitar players, give them a nudge and get them to subscribe too. All right, anyway, that's it for me tonight. Thank you so much for joining me, and rock on until next week.